Welcome back, daring seekers of nightmare fuel, to the Monster Hunter's Toolbox, where we investigate the unspeakable and pretend we're fine about it later. If you're new here, thanks for tuning in. If you're returning, well, you probably already know. The flashlight never works when you actually need it. Tonight we're opening a door that probably should not be open. That one clearly labeled, "Do not enter," ancient curse inside. But hey, curiosity's the whole brand, right? We're talking about that one cryptid that makes even seasoned paranormal veterans shift uncomfortably in their chairs. It's fast, silent, inhuman, and possibly wearing your brother's hoodie. That's right, we're talking about Skinwalkers. So grab your sage, zip up your tent, and for the love of all that's sacred, if you hear someone outside whispering your name tonight, don't answer. It's already too late. Let's start at the beginning, the part of the story where things were already bad. In Navajo culture, the Skinwalker is called naaldlooshii. I apologize for butchering that, but it translates to, "With it, he goes on all fours." Which honestly, that is already too much information. These are not just shapeshifters. They're powerful witches who've committed unspeakable acts, namely, unaliving a close family member to gain supernatural power. Yes, real human sacrifice, and no, not in a symbolic way. Once this unholy act has been committed, they gain the ability to take on animal forms. Wolves, fox, owls, and coyotes. Often things that travel by night and stare at you like they know your browser history. They're fast, and they can mimic the voices of your loved ones. It is absolutely terrifying. But perhaps, worst of all, they enjoy psychological warfare. They are not just monsters, they are sadists with fur and a flair for drama. But this isn't some French folktale. The Skinwalker is woven into the spiritual caution tape of Navajo culture. Even speaking the name is said to draw its attention, which begs the question, what exactly are we doing right now? Let's take a detour through one of the strangest plots of land on Earth, Skinwalker Ranch. Nestled in the unsettling emptiness of northeastern Utah. If you think that name sounds like bad marketing, think again. The locals didn't name it for kicks. They named it because things happen there. We're talking cattle mutilations so surgical they make med students sweat. UFO sightings that show up on radar. Portals. Disappearing objects. And, of course, massive bullet-immune beasts that show up just to ruin your livestock. And your sleep. One story tells of a wolf the size of a small car, and that's not an exaggeration. It strolled up and grabbed a calf through a fence. The family shot at it point-blank range, but it had zero effect, unless you count the wolf's vague irritation. The creature sauntered off like it hadn't even noticed it had been shot. Investigators found paw prints that just stopped, like the thing vanished or descended to hell. Other reports include glowing red eyes, mechanical hums coming from underground, and things crawling across the ceiling, Think Spider-Verse style. The conclusion? Either this place is a portal to the weirdest part of reality, or we're all sharing one very elaborate fever dream. Drop it down in the comments which way you lay. Now, it's one thing to talk about lore, to crack open the dusty pages of legend and whisper about ancient witches with a flair for transformation. But it's another thing entirely when real people start coming forward with stories. Stories they didn't want to believe. Stories they usually only tell once. These are not urban legends cooked up for a campfire scare. These are first-hand accounts from folks who looked into the eyes of something that should have not been standing upright and walked away with their sense of reality slightly cracked. Some of these stories come from the American Southwest. Some from back roads you've probably driven at night without a second thought. They all have one thing in common. Someone saw something, and it wasn't right. So take a breath, dim the lights if you dare, and remember, these people didn't go looking for skinwalkers. They just happened to be in the wrong place when something looked back. Out in the sparse quiet of rural New Mexico, where the wind always sounds like it's whispering someone's name, and the sky bleeds orange before going pitch black, a woman named Maria was walking home. Same route she took every day, same dusty road, only this time, something was off. She couldn't explain it, just that familiar prickle at the back of the neck that says, "You're not alone." That's when she saw it, crouched low in the brush off to the roadside. At first glance, a coyote, nothing unusual, until it shifted, stood, not rose like an animal might. It stood on two legs. What emerged from the shadows was lanky, too tall, with joints that didn't quite match the blueprint of anything natural. A sickly humanoid silhouette, its head cocked at an almost curious angle. It looked like it was trying to remember how to be human. Maria froze. One heartbeat. Two. Then she ran. Full sprint, no looking back. She slammed her front door shut so hard it rattled the windows, and hasn't walked that road again. Not without company, daylight, and probably some sage stuffed in her socks. She still doesn't talk about it much, only that she saw something she wasn't supposed to see. A skinwalker, or at least something wearing the idea of a human, like a borrowed jacket. Yeah, if someone stands up in the desert and it's not listed in a biology textbook, I'm locking the door and spiritually relocating. It was supposed to be a routine drive, a convoy of friends heading through Navajo land. The kind of backroad adventure where the playlists are bad and the snacks are worse. Twilight had settled in, that strange hour where the desert seems to hold its breath. That's when the lead driver noticed something in the periphery. A coyote, fast, too fast, keeping pace with the car. Weird, sure, but not panic-worthy. Until it did the one thing a coyote should never do. It stood up. Not reared, not leapt, stood on two legs. Its body stretched unnaturally tall, limbs too long, its gait eerily smooth, like it had worn human legs before, and it was just getting reacquainted. And just to add one more layer of what the hell, it appeared to be wearing buckskin pants. Or maybe skin that used to be buck. And then it was gone. No veering off into the brush. No sound. No dust kicked up. Just vanished. Like the air folded around it and decided not to share. When the convoy pulled over later, nervous, pale, all joking, long gone, they checked for tracks. Nothing. Not a single print in the soft dirt. None of them have driven that stretch since. And if they have to, they go the long way. Because whatever that was, it wasn't a coyote. And it definitely wasn't human. When your road trip turns into a cryptid fashion show featuring cursed buckskin, yeah, it's probably time to go. Somewhere in the vast, silent stretches of Navajo territory, a teenager dozed off on a late-night bus ride. You know the kind. Windows rattling, radio static humming low. Driver half lost in thought, until everything shifted. He jolted awake as the bus lurched, hard. They were flying down the highway now, way too fast. And outside the front windshield, keeping pace in the dark, were eyes. Yellow, glowing, locked onto them with the kind of intelligence that made your blood run cold. Then came the form behind those eyes. Not fully animal, but not anything he recognized either. It looked vaguely like a wolf, but stretched, twisted, too upright, too aware. It bared its teeth, a grin, long, sharp, impossible teeth, all pointed in the kind of way that says, I'm not hungry, I'm hunting for fun. The driver said nothing, just floored it, 85 miles per hour and counting. The thing kept pace for a while, as if amused. Then, just as quickly it appeared, it veered off and vanished into the night, like it had never been there. No dent, no sound, just absence. The teen never forgot those eyes. The driver wouldn't talk about it, not even when asked point blank at sunrise. All they were left with was an empty stretch of road and a memory that shouldn't exist. One that feels like it followed them home anyway. On a remote highway skirting the edge of the reservation, two friends were driving late, one of those midnight cruises where the silence is thick and the headlights feel too narrow for comfort. They weren't expecting much, a gas station stop, maybe a bad cup of coffee. What they got instead was a man standing in a ditch. Or at least it looked like a man. Pale, naked, tall enough to feel wrong. Its limbs were too long, its arms dangling just a bit too far below the knees. And it wasn't standing still, it was swaying, like something trying to remember what standing upright was supposed to look like. One of the friends rolled down the window, curiosity meet terrible idea. And the thing suddenly moved, fast. Not running exactly, more like gliding. Limbs pumping, but never seeming to touch the ground right. They sped off in a panic, the thing briefly keeping pace before disappearing into the dark, like it never existed. Later, back at the gas station, they told the cashier what they saw. She went quiet, then said flatly, "You shouldn't talk about that out loud." Needless to say, they didn't finish the coffee, and they haven't driven that road since. Not at night, not alone, not ever. Because whatever that was in the ditch, it wasn't human. It was wearing human, and not doing a great job at it. If the locals stop talking and your coffee suddenly tastes like regret, you saw something real. Let's get one thing crystal clear. You do not fight a skinwalker. This isn't a hero's journey situation. It's more of a don't make eye contact and back away slowly kind of vibe. And remember, this isn't your Halloween campfire story. For indigenous communities, especially the Navajo, skinwalkers are deadly serious, sacred, and terrifying. So if you're going to talk about them, like we are, do it with respect. Now, for survival, never whistle at night. That charming habit might be a summons. Do not investigate strange voices, especially if they sound familiar. That's how people in horror movies meet their end, remember? Avoid making jokes about them. Yes, I realize that's ironic. And do not look into trees if you hear rustling. Whatever's up there is looking right back, upside down. Trust your gut. If it says nope, you nope. Bonus advice: if your friend disappears into the woods and comes back a little off, emotionless, monotone, bad at jokes, they're not just tired. They might be wearing your friend's skin like a jacket. Alright, fellow spook chasers. Here's what you might pack if you're determined to dance with the afterlife. Salt and sage. Tradition says these can help ward off evil. Worst case, you have a nice smelling panic attack. Infrared camera. Some claim skinwalkers show up better under thermal. So yes, we're officially looking for nightmares in 4K. Authentic protection charms. And I don't mean the mass-produced junk from the gas station next to the pet psychic. Find a real practitioner. If your charm came with glitter and a coupon, just throw it away. Running shoes. Mostly symbolic, but hey, cardio never hurt. Two-way radios. For keeping in touch with your group. Or accidentally chatting with something that isn't human. Skinwalkers are the kind of legend that lives in the shadows of memory, in whispered warnings and cultural trauma. Whether you believe they're cursed witches, interdimensional predators, or something worse, they are not just stories. They are warnings. The most unsettling part? We may never know what they really are, and that's the point. So, fellow monster hunters, respect the story, respect the source, and, above all, don't go poking around in the dark just because you're curious. That's how the dark pokes back. So what have we learned tonight, monster hunters? That the desert doesn't just stretch for miles, it listens. That there are things out there wearing borrowed skin, walking on stolen legs, and smiling way too wide at people who look a little too curious. And that some stories might not want to be told, but they keep finding voices anyway. But we want to hear your stories too. Have you seen something in the woods that didn't move like it should? Heard your name whispered when no one was around? Drop your encounter in the comments if you're brave enough to share it. We're always watching for new tales to feature. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next time something unspeakable shows up just outside the firelight. Next week on the Monster Hunter's Toolbox, we're taking on mimics. The creatures that don't just steal your shape, they steal your life. From doppelgangers to soul imposters, you'll want to double check your reflection before that episode drops. Until then, keep your flashlight close, your wits closer, and never trust a silhouette that sways.